More than 50 conversations full of tears with overseas trained pharmacists who are struggling through the process. And I'm here to share 10 hidden truths that I have realized over 2.5 years of speaking with overseas trained pharmacists, having one coaching cohort, and just listening to all the difficulties through my journey, speaking online about the overseas trained pharmacist experience. I'm here to spill it all. Internationally qualified pharmacists are almost conditioned to just put their heads down and work hard. Despite the difficulties, despite the challenges, and the difficulty with this is that we end up being disappointed, burnt out, and demotivated, and not even willing to stay in the pharmacy profession anymore. I'm also going to be sharing a once in a lifetime offer for anyone who wants to attend the Catalyst conference. So please stick around to find out exactly what I mean and how you can take part in this offer. And I've got a notebook here and a pen just to show you that this is not AI. I literally brain dumped this onto the paper based on the experiences that I've had with internationally trained pharmacists. So the first one is a lack of real structure around your journey. So in the past, there was nothing like Oreo. So now there is Oreo. How do you get on to do Oreo before you start your OSPAP? Some people are not even in the country at the time that the Oreo process needs to be completed. Is there anyone supporting with this journey? I know that the universities try, but is there anyone that really supports the overseas trained pharmacists as well as advocates for overseas trained pharmacists to ensure that, one, the Oreo process does not send you to a place that's so far away from your training place, from your university, that you end up having to uproot your life after completing OSPAP to then move to a completely different part of the country? How difficult that is cannot be understated, right? To move to a completely different part of the country to begin your training and potentially then move again. So that's moving 3 times in a country that you're not very familiar with. That is literally one of the most stressful parts of this process for a lot of people. There's no structure, there's no guidance. You put in your application, you don't get any help or support or community, and you just go into this process blindly and hope for the best. Secondly, no overseas trained pharmacist gets the kind of support that an overseas trained pharmacist needs during their OSPAP training year. And I've heard over and over that the course directors are doing their best, and my hat's off to you guys. But I strongly believe that this responsibility should not be left to the course directors and the students alone to figure out. My example is that when I came into the UK to study pharmacy, I actually failed my first few years of pharmacy school because I had nobody telling me the truths about being in university in the UK, how it compares to wherever I'm coming from, and how I can ensure that I am empowered to succeed in university. You spend thousands and thousands of pounds to come into the UK to do your OSPAP, and you get into it and it is such a struggle. A lot of OSPAP pharmacists have to retake exams and redo courses, not because you're not competent, but because you actually do not have an idea of how to navigate the education system in the most optimal way. The third thing is navigating life in the UK, and this on its own is a whole topic, because navigating life in the UK is from things like registering in the bank, knowing where to get different things. If you've got family, how do you get support with childcare? If you've got family, what are the rules? All the things that you need to know to live comfortably in the UK. Does anyone sit down and actually really support you through that journey? Or do you just go into it and have to figure it out all by yourself? Some people are lucky enough that they've got family and friends already in the UK, but a good majority of overseas trained pharmacists actually come into the UK on their own. There is no support, there's no hand holding through this journey. So as well as trying to complete your OSPAP, you're also trying to figure out how to even just live and survive in this country. It's a massive toll because the cultural differences are vast. The next challenge that I've been seeing is overseas trained pharmacists repeatedly struggling in their foundation training year. So you get posted to a random place by Oreo, you uproot yourself from where you've done your OSPAP, you go to a different part of the country and you try to settle and try to start life all over again only to get into the workplace and nobody understands you, nobody understands your context, nobody understands that you have been qualified before, so they probably don't even recognize your skills and abilities. Now, what I'm saying is not a blanket because I know there are exceptions, but this is a majority if I'm being honest. Nobody really understands your context as an overseas trained pharmacist. I've had really frustrated trainees crying on the phone to me because their training providers are not supporting them to get the right level of support and help that they need to be able to scale through their exams as well as feel confident when they actually go into practice. Now, what I'm saying is not a blanket because I know there are exceptions, but this is a majority if I'm being honest. Nobody really understands your context as an overseas trained pharmacist. I've had really frustrated trainees crying on the phone to me. The next thing that I've been seeing in this journey is that the rate of failure of overseas trained pharmacists have been stated to be higher in the last few years than the pharmacists who did their training in the UK. And this is no shocker because, like I said, the UK education system and the UK training and practice system requires a completely different style of showing your understanding compared to Nigeria, where I'm from. And I think it will be the same across the world. You need to understand, what does the UK system require from me? The UK system is unlike any other system that I've ever experienced, and I know it might be similar to some other countries, but it is unlike any system I personally have experienced, and I know that a lot of you internationally trained pharmacists can relate to this, right? The system is different, education system is different, so it is no surprise that overseas trained pharmacists often have to take their exams more than once. What support is there for this? You have to pay out of your own pocket to get a training provider. Do you know who the best training providers are? Is your training place supporting you? And we're going to get to that in the next point. Is your training place supporting you to optimize yourself during your training year to get the best out of your training exam when the time comes? So many questions asked, nobody to answer these questions for overseas trained pharmacists. The next difficulty that overseas trained pharmacists face is the expectations. So you come into the UK, it's in 2 years, you are still struggling to navigate the system, navigate the people, understand how to communicate, understand the exams, understand everything. But then when you step into practice, once you've passed your exam, you are expected to be a responsible pharmacist. The real reality is that yes, you have the capability and the clinical competence, but are you confident enough to step into that role? Because in a lot of cases, you will be working in isolation, especially if you don't get into hospital, which is less likely for a lot of overseas trained pharmacists who need a visa. You would most likely end up in the community and you'll be working often independently. Are you confident enough to lead a team of people whom you are still trying to understand the cultural barriers between you and them, how teamwork works in the UK, how the system functions as a whole, what are the standard operating procedures for that pharmacy, how to survive life in the UK? All of these different nuances, visas, financial struggles, everything, as well as the responsibility of leading a team as a pharmacist, which has legal consequences if you do not do it right. Are you being supported or not? The next difficulty, and I say this one because I think it must be highlighted, is that amidst everything you're going through, there is no space in your day-to-day and in your mind and in everything you're going through for you to actually make the mindset shift that is required when you move from a different country into the UK. The mindset of people living in the UK is completely different. The mindset you need to have as an immigrant in the UK is different. There's so many things you need to learn to be able to optimize your well-being and your health in the UK as an immigrant. You don't have the space to do all of this, especially if you even have a young family or you have a family at all that you have to cater to and look after. There's so much going on that your mental and emotional well-being is under a lot of pressure. Add on the fact that you then have to be a responsible pharmacist. The next difficulty, and this one is actually pointing at the new regulations coming. So in 2028, the GPHC would be changing the structure of overseas trained pharmacist transition, but this regulation would actually still impact the people who have already done their transition, because the aim of the GPHC is to have them be independent prescribers by the time they are qualified. And being an independent prescriber is an added responsibility to you as an overseas trained pharmacist. Are you ready for that? If you've already done your training and you're not an independent prescriber, you still have to go on, complete the training for prescribing and be a prescriber. Are you ready to take on that workload? Are you supported enough to take on that workload? Prescribing is not a child's game. Prescribing is very serious work, and prescribing is going to be the helm of the pharmacy profession in the near future. It's coming really quickly. What are your feelings and how supported do you feel to take on this extra responsibility of prescribing? I don't know, because when I did my prescribing, I was already more than 2 years qualified, so I felt a bit stable, although I still felt like I needed support. How much more an overseas trained pharmacist coming in with all of these nuances that I've already mentioned and having to take on that added responsibility of prescribing? Let me know what you think in the comments. The next thing I see repeatedly is constantly overseas trained pharmacists telling me they want to leave the profession. Either they're just demoralized, demotivated, not happy, they just want to go on and do something else, become a software developer. And I am not saying that if you feel called and led to do something outside of pharmacy, then you shouldn't. No, you should absolutely go and do that. I'm talking about the people who actually have an innate passion and desire for pharmacy. Having to end up living a profession that you deeply love and actually desire to be a part of, just because of all the difficulties that you are experiencing while you're trying to transition and settle into the profession, is really sad and disheartening to me. I've heard so many people say they want to leave the profession, and I think it shouldn't be this way. If you follow me for a while, you know that I'm an advocate for the pharmacy profession, and one of the main reasons why I started to speak online in the first place is because I wanted to advocate for the pharmacy profession, because I know that if the support is robust and if done well, you can actually be fulfilled and thrive in this profession. I'm a case in point, and in another video, I will share my story as to how I am where I'm at and how I'm feeling about the profession and how I have felt for a long time. And mostly I'm this way because I didn't allow the negativity to get to me, and I did the hard work to get myself out of the place where I was struggling. Now I'm trying to be here to help, because if I had to make all those mistakes and do all that hard work, I'm hoping that you don't have to do them, and maybe your own mistakes are a lot better mistakes than the ones that I made, because I can support you through your journey as an internationally trained pharmacist, so that your hurdles are surmounted much sooner, much quicker, and much easier, so you can go on to being fulfilled, being happy, and just achieving the best that you can as a pharmacist in the UK. And lastly, but not the least, this one is particularly tailored to people who are not yet ready to do their OSPAP and are in the UK. I've had so many people reach out to me on how they can start a career in the pharmacy profession without going through OSPAP. There is no easy way into it. I have advised over and over again for people to walk into independence, express their interest in learning about the profession, and offer their help and support to the community pharmacy wherever it is they have walked into. That doesn't seem to be working so much anymore, because a lot of pharmacies feel like overseas trained pharmacists will come and be an extra burden. So I want to create a pathway where, without trying too hard, you will be able to get some experience in community pharmacy or in other sectors of pharmacy before you go on to do your OSPAP, if that's what you desire, because I strongly believe that that early experience prepares you so much for the future of your pharmacy profession. Because when you then take on the responsibility of being a responsible pharmacist, you have done a lot of the groundwork, you have done a lot of the effort, you've done everything that you need to have done to feel a bit more settled in the country as a whole. I'm about to share, I am hosting the Catalyst Conference. Faith, what's the Catalyst Conference? Well, I spoke to all of you. I've been speaking to you guys for years, and I just got tired of feeling the burden, the weight of all the difficulties that you guys have been facing as internationally trained pharmacists, and I couldn't solve the problem on my own. So I decided to host a conference to bring our leaders into the room, as well as you internationally trained pharmacists. Let's talk to the leaders. Let's let them know the difficulties that you are facing, and let's be the place where change starts to happen. And I will be creating a structure. So if you want to know exactly how you can still survive and thrive, and I mean it, thrive in the UK as a pharmacist, I want you to be at the Catalyst conference. Unless you do decide that you would much rather go through the difficulty, or you don't care about having support, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to have support. But if you're someone who believes that the extra support will be very beneficial for your journey, then join me at the Catalyst conference, where I'll be sharing the structured integration pathway to surviving and thriving in the UK as an overseas trained pharmacist. And we will be having organizations there like the RPS who have come on board to help us advocate for overseas trained pharmacists. We'll be having other organizations coming on board, and I can't wait to see you guys there, and I can't wait for us to begin this journey together. I want it to be that the story of the overseas trained pharmacists 5 years from now is that they came into the UK, they empowered the UK pharmacy workforce, and they were a force to be reckoned with. And I want to lead that journey with you guys behind me and also by my side, supporting me along this journey. So I've got a one-time offer. I've got a buy one get one free offer, and that offer will end in 2 days from the day that this video goes live. So if you go onto the page, I'm going to do it as soon as this video goes live. There will be a buy one get one free offer, and that offer would expire in 2 days. Make sure you take advantage of it, because if you miss out on being at this conference, you miss out on being part of the very first people that will be getting the right support on their journey as internationally qualified pharmacists in the UK. Alright, thank you guys so much for stopping on this video, for coming back to the channel. I know I haven't been here for a while, but I hope to see you guys in another video. Thank you. Bye.